Hi, welcome to Cubs and Culture for 10/7/2018. I should be able to get this up before work. In any case, the next best picture is Going My Way, which is a story of a Catholic priest coming over to help out, a young Catholic priest coming over to take over a parish. From an older priest who's just a little bit behind the times and everything. And then he's a blight spirit, so he ends up correcting a whole bunch of neighborhood stuff. Bing Crosby is the main character, and then this other man named, let me go through the awards. Barry Fitzgerald's the older priest, so it's sort of a two-hander between those two things. It's a couple of things that are institutional, that are very interesting about this film. A couple years later, even though the next movie was written first, The Bells of St. Mary, same Bing Crosby repeats his role, and then it's the same director. And Leo McCarey was also the original writer of both stories, Bells of St. Mary. Anyway, that was the first. Bells of St. Mary is the first Best Picture nominee of a sequel of a Best period. And then for a long time, it was the first Best Picture nominee of a sequel to a Best Picture winner. Any case, the other thing I want to say real quickly until I get to the commentary on the film is how good the film is. It's somewhat amazing to me how often the practices of the Academy sort of get ad hoc. So initially it was, we're going to do this in June, so it'd be June to June, and they realized that didn't really make sense. Well, and then for Mutiny on the Bounty, that's where the Best Supporting Actor category comes from, because that Mutiny on the Bounty got 3 acting nominations. Anyway, something very similar happened here with Barry Fitzgerald. Initially, it wasn't up to the studios who was supporting, who was lead. It was up to the voters. And there's an argument to be made that Fitzgerald is actually the lead character in this. Because he's he goes through it. He has almost as much screen time as Bing Crosby. His character is the one that really sort of changes over the course of the story, etc. I can actually think technically he's the protagonist. Anyway, so he was nominated, but there's also an argument for him to be in the supporting category, in that Bing Crosby drives the story, and Father O'Malley is sort of the bigger star. And then it being something of a musical, Bing Crosby is the one who sings and everything like that. And so there's really an argument for both of them. In any case, Fitzgerald was ended up nominated as both Best Supporting Actor, which he won, and Best Lead Actor, which he lost to Bing Crosby. And so, they never thought that this would happen. So they had the rule where it's whoever you nominated, whoever you wanted in each category. So, most of, almost the entire Academy thought Fitzgerald should be nominated. But, half of them put them in the lead, and the other half put him in the, supporting. So they had to change the rules, 2 days later, they changed the rule where the studios, would formally designate one actor and one actress as the lead, and then everyone else was supporting. So all this stuff in Oscar history about category theft, because you have a supporting a lead performance in the supporting category, you can thank Going My Way for that. Anyway, before I'll bring up the trailer in a second. I generally like this movie. It hasn't aged particularly well for reasons I'll talk about. It's also this very weird form where it's not really a musical and it's not really a comedy. It's not a musical comedy and it's not really a musical drama or operetta. It's something of a dramedy, which is a neat tone. Anyway, so let me bring up the trailer and stuff. Okay, so while I overall like Going My Way, I gotta say this. The first time I watched this film, which was 10 years ago, I absolutely fucking hated it. Hated it with a burning passion. and I still think the reason why I hated it the last time I watched it is a valid point. It's basically because it's this other form, musical dramedy. I still feel like the film should have went in one direction more than the other. So it's trying to both be a sort of a light dramatic movie, in that you are dealing with a younger priest trying to get an older priest to be get a parish out of dire financial strait and everything like that. But it is sort of a comedy because it's mostly about the clash of their personalities, and then having different methods, because Fitzgibbons, who's the older priest, is very traditionalist, and O'Malley's very progressive, etc. That it's not all that sort of dramatic. It fits more comfortably in terms of most of its style of acting, style of direction, much more comfortable in like a comedy light film. At the same time, there's ever so slightly more and more sort of darkness, because like at one point Fitzgibbons runs away, and then the big story beats that kind of goes a little bit more into the drama than you would necessarily want up until up to that point. Was this the church ends up on fire, and so because of that, it feels more like when I first watched it, it felt more like like it didn't know quite what it'd be, but in actual fact, it is trying to be this sort of musical dramedy. And I don't know if it's because I'm mature or what. The other thing that sort of bothers me on this front is a lot of the songs are unmotivated in terms of the narrative, other than like Swinging on a Star and the song Going My Way. It's much more like, hey, let's sing a song, and I wish they were integrated more. So I feel like it should have moved more towards a drama or more towards a musical comedy. It's kind of stuck in between, and while it ultimately overall works for me, yeah, I can understand why that's off-putting, because it's not a very, it's a very droll and casual, easy film with just touches of darkness that can be off-putting if you're not used to this style, which apparently I wasn't 10 years ago. Anyway, the other thing that I found very off-putting, and I think this might be why I was so hated this film, because of this scene right here. It's a very early scene. And I was sort of in a militant secularist phase. And this scene, I still don't like the scene. I still think this scene's sort of culturally inappropriate and everything like this. But it's gonna this is atheist baiting. This guy's that guy right there is a jackass. He's completely, utterly a jackass. And it comes out he's an atheist, and it's kind of amusing. This sort of spat between them. It gives good characterization to O'Malley, because he's just a good guy. And he's really patient and everything like that. And they could have done that without making this guy an atheist, especially since they get the atheist definition wrong. Because they say, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in anything, and I'm superstitious, which is just not true. And so this really sort of bothers me, especially since I'm pretty sure this is the only representation of atheists in all the Best Picture winners. I can't think of. I mean, depictions of atheists in general are very, very rare in film, in American cinema. And so there's that. And so again, 10 years ago when I watched this, it just pissed me off. Even though I don't think it's that huge of a problem, and it's sort of a dated aspect of it. And Bing Crosby is engaging here, and like the scene is well written, like you get the point across. It feels like there's no reason in this movie to like pick on atheists for a second. Now, of course, the other sort of issue is, okay, so O'Malley is a younger priest, so he's trying to. These are troubled youth. And they've been stealing turkeys and stuff. Minor vandalism, troubled kids, not necessarily violent. And this stuff is all engaging. Unfortunately, time has really moved on sort of how we think of Catholic priests, and this is unfair to both. This is unfair to both the movie, and it's also unfair to the vast majority of Catholic priests. Because, of course, with the sex molestation and sex scandals around Catholic priests, like that, it's really hard not to. So, like back in the 40s, the Catholic priests were just considered great, like good guys. Just they're priests, they're good, and they're good men, and they're sort of lionized in the culture, and virtually all the stuff around priests in cinema up until this point were absolutely wholly good. In fact, Ben O'Malley and Fitzgibbon are both very decent human beings. The problem is time has moved on, and we have hundreds or thousands of accounts of priests molesting and sexually abusing altar boys and other children. And it's really sort of hard to get out of this, and it's not, and so it's totally a dated thing. Like that line, they're going to slip them the old routine. What he means is you're going to preach to them about becoming good Catholics, but it comes across now as sort of cringy and creepy because you're like, he's a Catholic priest. Like, he shouldn't be alone with those kids. Which, again, is profoundly unfair to the vast majority of Catholic priests and to the film. But your mind just sort of goes there. Okay, so the last little bit I want to show is, I want to show a little bit of Fitzgibbon, because I really like Fitzgerald's performance. He's such an old curmudgeon-y guy, and here's they're finally having like an off day because they sold Swinging on a Star, which is the main sort of this really good song. And Fitzgerald is totally something of an, like, he doesn't really understand golf and everything like that because he's so old and curmudgeon-y. I just like, and this is a good representation of sort of the humor in the film. Because he's gonna, they're playing golf, so it's every swing, so the guy's gonna swing 5 times, and then he lies to O'Malley, but then Fitzgerald gets to tell him the truth, which is sort of a charming, droll, sort of thing. And I don't know, there's the acting in this movie, is fairly good. Bing Crosby, he's more of a star than an actor, and that's always the case. He is mostly appealing here, and he doesn't feel just like it's Bing Crosby as a priest. It feels like, oh, this is an actor who is actually playing a character, which I don't know if that's necessarily the best performance. But Barry Fitzgerald, who is the guy on the left, the older priest, he is absolutely great. In this role. He was actually not, he only was basically known for this one role because he was just such a character actor. He's so curmudgeon-y, he's so set in his ways, especially at the beginning, but there's something about Fitzgerald's performance which he makes him very, very sort of endearing, and he's just sort of a great, like, he's an old man, like he's an old guy that you just can't help but love. And it's in a lot of ways, I think that's one of this is probably the film's greatest aspect or feature, because even though it's not as dramatic as it could be, or it's not as comedic as it could be, there's enough in this film of tragedy and everyday life that it feels like a life affirming film. And there's this other scene between them where they're talking about hope, and Fitzgibbons is like, my pilot light is about to go out. And then in some ways I feel like that's a good metaphor. What this film is trying to do is trying to keep your pilot light lit. So, like, this checker game which you're watching right now, yeah, it's sort of a droll silly joke about O'Malley just outsmarting Fitzgibbons by beating him at checkers, and at the same time it is very amusing and everything like that, and so it's, this movie makes you happy when you watch it, and even though you can say it's maybe not that great of a movie, and you have sort of dated aspects like around them being Catholic priests, it's still at the end of the day makes you happy, which is a great, that's not nothing, especially since this came out in 1944, when then people were dealing with World War II, and being happy is great. Anyway, have a nice day. Cousin Culture out.